another brand new episode, webinar number 651, sponsored by Institute of Global Professionals. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Institution of Global Professionals International webinar. So, thank you so much for joining with us again in our. This is our second live session. So, please stay with us till the end of our program. And once again, I'm your host, Nasrunisha from Bangladesh. Welcome you all to our Institution of Global Professionals. Yes, it's a great opportunity to learn with IGP. So, dear participants, don't stop sharing this live session and mentioning your friends in our comment box. And you can also tag, share, and mention your familiar person in our comment section. So, dear participants, give a react and comment in our live session. So, feed your skills. You can also comment in our comment box with hashtag feed your skills, hashtag IGP. So once again, dear participants, thank you for joining with us in this marvelous moment. I believe that you all will have many takeaways and payoffs from this webinar. So let's start our program. Dear participants, let's learn and grow together because we believe that power is gained by sharing knowledge, not holding it. All right, so dear participants, really am proud to be associated with IGP as a global member, and I feel respected and privileged to host this webinar. And I'm very happy to welcome you all to our Institute of Global Professionals. All right, so dear participants, let's see our comment section first. So right now we have Sir January Sini already joined from Facebook. We have Sir Innocent Jang. Thank you, sir, for sharing. We have Ma'am Sheila Upama. Thank you, ma'am. Sir Alex Xavier Alvarez. Ma'am Leah Dumas. Okay, we have Ma'am Isa Ramos joined from YouTube. We have Sir Eke Adhikari, Ma'am Earthly. Thank you so much, ma'am, for commenting. We have Ma'am Shani Villaflor, Ma'am Isaiah Kenny. Thank you so much for joining. We have Ma'am, okay, Church. Good afternoon, ma'am. Sorry, Paolo Olivera. And we have right now Ma'am Irish, Ma'am Gloria. Okay, Ma'am Isaiah, Ma'am Sila. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining with us and mentioning your friends. So please share this in Facebook groups, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all the social media you are using. Okay. So right now I'm going to share a little concept about Institute of Global Professionals. Good afternoon, Sir Liviran. Okay. So we have already known that IGP is a non-profit international educational training institute. IGP serves students and community resource, providing holistic social work and education for create a profession generation. IGP is leading on online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. We make it able to use for every knowledge seeker to originate their personality, more ambitious, make confident to face any circumstance and develop their own skills. We are entrusted with international recognition. IGP uh, is an educational institution towards social work. We believe that it's not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate profession generation all over the world. Yes, we organized our webinar, online, offline courses, etc. by best and trained speakers from all over the globe to create a best learning platform for all of you. And our mission is empower people, our youth, and enhance. Yes, so let's start our program with IGP's mantra that is feed your skills. Yes, and we will proceed our program step by step. We have our speaker from India in this session. And after the presentation, we will start our quiz segment that is a highlighting part of our program. We'll have fun. And then we have our Q session. So if you have any question and query on topic, please don't hesitate to ask our speaker. And then we'll share the international webinar code so then you can get your e-certificates. Yes. So, dear participants, I'll not long my conversation. Let's welcome our honorable speaker from India, Ma'am Dr. Kanika Sachdeva. So, give a round of applause for our honorable speaker. Hello, ma'am. Good
I'm
afternoon.
good afternoon. I'm fine, thank you. How about you?
Absolutely fine, ma'am. Good to see you, ma'am.
Same here,
Okay,
same
so
here.
ma'am, here is your presentation, and the platform is for you, and we are ready to learn from you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you for this warm welcome. And just a confirmation, I'm audible to everybody, right?
Yes.
All right. All right. So, good afternoon to one and all present here for the session. I would like to take this opportunity to thank IGP for giving me this platform where I can interact with all of you, if not physically, but yes, virtually. And for the next 1 hour, we are gonna have a lot of discussions around literature review for researchers, and research has become an integral part of our life, be it academics or be it corporate, and in our personal lives as well. We do a lot of research when we are buying something online. We surf various portals and then we go forward, right? Similarly, the main focus, though there are various areas where the research is gaining its importance and coming into the limelight day by day. But here, the focus is primarily on the academics vertical of it, and we are going to talk about how researchers can conduct the literature review, how is it important to them, and so on and so forth, right? So I'm Dr. Kanika, and I'm working as associate professor with School of Business, Shashanti University, Gurgaon, which is in India. So not taking much of your time, I'll be just commencing with the session. So let's talk about what is basically literature review. As a layman, if I want to put it into two pieces, one is literature and the other part of it is review. So the literature is nothing but the summary of all the, or I can say the literature is nothing but the content available on various platforms, right? You search it on Google or ResearchGate or Google Scholar. So all the published documents that are available in terms of soft copy or hard copy, we call them as literature. And review is nothing but checking the summary and deriving out the important facts out of the published documents which are of my own area. So when I say that I want to conduct a literature review, so in that case, I can consider articles, books, journals, and studies that are relevant to my research, or I can say those are relevant to the area or the theories that I may use in my research. So it helps us to discover what is already known, where is the problem, and what has to be done. If I'm supposed to explore any area, be it banking or digital marketing, so how I can add to the existing literature is all about by going through the literature which is previously available to us, so that I can understand up to what extent the work has been done, and from where I have to take the next step to take the literature to the next level or take the research work in that specific area to the next level. So, according to Abdallah and Levin, the material gathered in literature review should be included as a part of the research data. Since it influences the problem and research design, it can be used to compare the results and findings for the current study, right? So, as very clearly mentioned and highlighted by them, whatever literature I'm reviewing for my work, so in that case, I have to consider that as a part of my research work by mentioning them in my literature review, and which will help me to derive my conclusions, or I can say which will help me to support my conclusion, because there may be many studies which are producing the similar results to what you have produced, and there may be many studies which are in contradiction of your results, right? So you can say these literatures are in support of my study and these literatures are in contrary to my study, right? So therefore you are able to establish a connection among what has been done and what you're trying to prove. So, why is it important? By now, I'm sure we are clear about what literature is all about, and similarly, it's important for us to understand the relevance of it for the researchers, right? Because it helps the researcher to identify the problem. As I mentioned earlier, also, it will help you to elaborately undergo the content what has already been done, right? And where the people have left it. So, therefore, where the problem was, and I can develop and refine the research questions for my further research work, right? And I can talk about what is known, what is not known, right? It's not all about taking the research to the next level. However, I can just work on a research paper or I can conduct a research which just talks about or which just highlights these are the aspects of any of the area which have been covered so far, and these are the remaining part of it, or these are the the hidden agendas of this parameter which can be explored further. And how you will get to know about all this is you will get to know all about it if you have conducted proper literature review, means if you have undergone the review properly. So it helps you to determine what are the gaps and the inconsistency in the existing literature, right? And many a times it may happen that one study had ended up at one place and there are other authors who have tried to answer the query that one researcher had left with, and followed by the question again they may leave to their research towards the end. So similarly it helps you to discover the unanswered questions, right? Because the I would say the good or the proper way to conclude any of the research paper is to leave a ray of agenda or some areas where the studies can be further explored and contribute to the existing areas, right? And it helps us to uh, determine the need of why the previous study whatever has been conducted need to be replicated. Sometimes it happens we have conducted one area into the northern region of the country, and second study is being conducted considering the same parameters but in different geographical locations, right? So in that case what happens, so review helps us to make us give proper instances why this study can be conducted in the same or same settings but using different geographical locations, right? So it helps us to also identify relevant theoretical and conceptual framework. Now, what is theoretical and conceptual framework? These are, the building pillars for your literature review. Theoretical framework are basically the theories which are associated with the area of research that you are planning to take up further. And conceptual framework is what a researcher develops out of conducting the or reading through multiple research papers where he identifies these are my dependent variables and these are my independent variables, and what are the output that I would be, uh, delivering out of considering or processing these dependent and independent variables. So this also helps us to describe the strengths and the weaknesses of the design and methodology that we have been using, because you will undergo a lot of research work which people have done where they would have explained what methodology they have been using. So similarly, they would have also given the reasons to the use of that methodology. So you can take best out of it and use the best methodology for your own work. It helps us to plan the methodology as well, and along with it, it helps you to define or develop the hypothesis also. Along with it, it also assists the reader to define or develop the research instruments, because once you are clear with the objectives, then you can easily frame your hypothesis. And now, once you have made your hypothesis and objectives clear with yourself, then it becomes little easy for the researcher to develop the research instruments, wherein he or she can be clearly indicating like this objective is being addressed by these many questions, and so on and so forth, right? And it also helps us to identify the suitable design and data collection methods for the research work. Now, yeah, it's all about, not just conducting the literature review or the review of literature, but the point is, how do I make it good? Because there are a lot of researchers, because no research can be completed without literature review. So literature review is the essential and the integral part of any of the research work that you conduct. But the main agenda that I'm going to focus here is how to make it good, or how you can say what are the review which are mentioned in a good way and which are not, right? So first of all, a good review of literature must be comprehensive. When we say comprehensive, it's not like that I take all the reviews which are just of my domain. Yeah, you have to focus your domain. Now, say for example, if you're trying or you're working on a research paper which is on consumer psychology, right? And then you have taken all the research papers which talks about consumer psychology, from top to bottom, from 2 decades before to the current one. You have tried to include everything, but you missed on including the research papers which coined the theory of consumer psychology, right? Which highlighted the relevance of consumer theory as the theoretical aspect, right? So it should be comprehensive in nature, meaning thereby it's not all about covering your own area, rather covering the theoretical frameworks as well, or the papers which have coined your the theory related to your research area, right? So it should include up-to-date references, not to mention, but yes, the references should be of current dates and current years. It should be systematic, right? And it should be reproducible. The another important point is it should be reproducible, meaning thereby it shouldn't be the case that for the heck of doing it, I do it and then get rid of it, right? So when I'm trying to write something, somebody's gonna read it, right? There are a lot of readers, there are a lot of scholars who may go through the content. So, if they're not able to use my work or cite my work, then there is no purpose of doing such work. So, it should be reproducible in that case. It should be free from bias and must be well written. When I say bias, bias is, say for example, I'm talking about the consumer perception towards online shopping, right? So, as an individual, I personally believe that online shopping has a positive impact on consumer perceptions, because that is convenient to the customers, right? And so on and so forth. So I have a lot of logics which says consumer is positively perceiving the online shopping, right? And now when I start exploring this matter further, exploring this research further, I'm just trying to figure out or trying to consider only those research work which are giving the results which I wanted to produce in my study. So in that case, there is no point of conducting that, because you are not having mixed opinion. neither you are having contradictory opinions, right? So how would you prove your work right, or how would you prove your work more, good in terms of strength, right? So therefore, it should be free from any bias and it should be well written. It should be part of some of its parts. Very beautifully written. That when I say literature of review, what happens basically is I take out the crux of the various research papers and when I try to weave them together, right? So that it forms like a story. It should be clearly searched and selected, right? It's not like that, any XYZ paper because you have read it. So now you feel like, my God, I cannot waste my time. I have spent almost an hour or a day to read through this, and now this is not relevant to it. But now, when I've spent this much of time, let me include it into my research. So that's not the correct way. If you have, read it, probably at this moment it may not be useful to you, but probably at a later point of time you may use it. But if it is not falling into your area of acceptance, then please don't accept it, right? And accurate references should be given, right? Because in review you have to give due regards to the original authors, because you are using someone else's work to be making your results more supportive in that ways. So it's always good to give good amount of and accurate references. So now, what are the factors which affect literature review? We can all do literature review, but what are the key elements that we say, the review done by so and so author is good, but the review done by this author is not up to the mark, because that's not fulfilling the requirement of the research work or the research domain. So the very first one is researcher's background. An experienced researcher finds it easy to prepare a review of literature than a beginner. Right? And it's not in the case of review of literature, it's in every domain. When you start doing something, you really face some hiccups and challenges. But as you grow up in the ladder, you become more comfortable. Right? Complexity of the research project. Now, what happens is, or the research project or the research domain, many time it happens, you take up a topic which is, extremely exhausted, but you are trying to validate whether the same thing is being applicable in the current scenario or not. So you may get all the relevant literatures very easily, but many a times, in case it happens that the research project or the research area is not that explode, but still you try to be a part of the evolving stage of that research domain, then in that case you may face little complexity. Then we have what are the types of resources you are available with. So if you are having a good amount of online and offline resources available with yourself, then that gives you a good number of research papers, and hence you develop a good review of literature, right? And then what is the study time frame you are considering? So we must have sufficient time, not in terms of just the time period of the study that I have been considering. Say, you can say I have considered the study of last 20 years, because I have started the studies, taken the studies from 2010 to 2020 and then 2000 as well. But now, how many time you're devoting to read the articles that you have downloaded? So you have conducted this research for yourself in 3 months, or you have given explored more further for the number of months, and then you have derived the conclusion out of it, right? And then availability of the support system. So here, support system, I'm trying to highlight the support given to the researchers, to the academicians like me, by the places they do, where do they work, where they are associated with, right? So is your organization having the access to various databases, then it becomes very easy for you to conduct, and so on and so forth. So now, what is the purpose, right? So I'll just quickly take you through it, because most of the things I'm sure we are clear about it. Now, to highlight a few points, it helps us to identify what is already known about a specific issue, right? It helps us to build on the previous knowledge. So whatever we had previously, how we can take that knowledge ahead, right? So many published research studies contain recommendation for future research. from which we can get idea for the new research study. This is very important because I already mentioned when we talk about writing down a research paper towards the end of it when we write the conclusion. So just go through the last few lines of the paragraph, which we says that the future scope of the study. So which will highlight what are the areas are not probably explored in the current study, what you can do further, right? It is all it is necessary to narrow the problem, right? We can narrow down our problem once we know what is already being existing into the review existing in the literature. Identify questions a body of research does not answer. So oh, there can be a problem which is being addressed but not to the full extent. So there are few questions or few agendas which are yet to be addressed or answered. So literature of review helps me to do that. It helps researcher to get acquainted with the relevant theories, strategies, tools and instruments for conducting the research. Now it may happen hypothetically there are many cases where I just assumed that this study can be based on secondary data and the result can provide me good informations, but once I gone through the various literatures which are available into my own area, then I realized no, this do calls for primary research as well, right? So it helps me to understand what are the relevant theories and strategies and tool and instruments which I can use, right? It helps to understand the different ways of conducting the research studies. Also, it helps us to make a comparison of the data that is available and what I can collect and hence interpret it. So there are, I mean, if I talk about the initial years, there were just few ways that we could have conducted our literature review. But with the time, the review of literature has gained its importance in every vertical, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session. So hence, we have four types of conducting review of literature. This is the very traditional one, which is also known as narrative review of literature, right? So here, what happened? I just read through or go through a document and derive out the summary of that particular document. I prepare the crux of that document into few lines. So now the next is systematic review of literature. As the name suggests, systematic. It does follow a well-defined approach and system to conduct the review of literature. So meaning thereby, here I have a very systematic approach where I clearly define what would be the sources of my studies, what will be the keywords that I'm looking forward to search my documents. Then how many searches I get if I put these keywords, and then at every step I keep on narrow down my uh, study, right? So that is what we follow a systematic approach. Coming to the meta-analysis, basically this type of review takes large quantitative findings and conducts a statistical analysis. So meaning thereby, here we conduct the study of studies. What happens? I take the quantitative findings of all the individual authors, right? And try to validate it whether this can be applicable in today's scenario or not. Say for example, uh, I say that the native language has an impact on, or I say English language has an impact on identifying the words in an infant, right? So in that case, when I considered a study which is conducted in US, it was like there is a significant impact. But when I talk about a study which is being conducted in Dutch, so there the impact was insignificant. Now the agenda for both the studies is same, but the geographical locations are different. Hence, what I further realized is that both the researchers have considered the language as English, but for the person in US, it's their native language. So they can have, the infant can understand it clearly. So therefore, it's showing significant impact. But when I talk about a researcher who has done it in Dutch, so English is not a native language to them. So therefore it was insignificant to them. Similarly, there would be many researchers who may be using the quantitative data to produce their own results, and then what I do, I take the individual results and integrate them to enhance the understanding. Now, what is metasynthesis? Metasynthesis is basically, here I use the quantitative data, which is basically statistical data, and here I use non-statistical data and integrate them and interpret the results out of it. And then I, identify the common elements, and I further consider them as the variable to my study and explore it to the next level. So, what can be the sources of review of literature? It could be the primary source, right? So, there are many sources. So, the first one is the primary source. Primary source is basically which is originally written by the researcher. It is a research publication written by the person or the people who conducted the research. And the example for the same could be public published thesis, dissertations, the research articles, handwritten records, reports, and reports could be published by any government authority or any agency or body, right? Then we have secondary and the tertiary sources. And secondary sources are which somebody else has conducted, but probably not written by the original author. Say, for example, the information I received in newspaper. So the incident may have taken somewhere else, and the reporter or the content writer must have written the content, right? But they are not the original author, right? So similarly, the book chapters, televisions, and the magazines and the other journals as well, which publish the articles of the various other from the various other initiation points. And then we have tertiary sources, right, which these sources are primarily considered to take help when we need some background information. And the examples to these tertiary sources are dictionaries and the handbooks, right? So these are the more of primary sources. Primary sources is written and by a person who developed the theory or conducted the research, right? Say, for example, excuse me, the original qualitative research on patient experiences in the ICU is, Hupke JE is the author who has written this in 2000, and this is the article name, this is the journal where it has been published, and these are the volume and the page number. So this is how you can use the primary sources. Then secondary sources in detail, right? So they are written by the people other than the individual who developed the theory, right? Now what can happen, secondary sources could be, say, for example, um, uh, say you have written a research paper, right? So that becomes the primary source for you because you have written it. But now when I am reading it and writing it in my own words, and the third person is referring to my work, so for him, it's the secondary source because he is not getting the information firsthand, right? However, your document for me is the primary source because it is your document only, authored by you, and I am referring to that only, right? But third person may refer my work, right, which for him become the secondary sources. Now, these are very important, right? What are the resources of literature review? From where, what are the places from where I can get the content, get the articles, get the research papers, right? So the very first one is electronic database, which is online, and the hard copies, which is magazines and newspaper. So when I talk about electronic database, there are a lot of databases these days which are available for the researchers, right? We can log on to the websites of the journals. We can go to the Scopus database. We can go to the Web of Science database, right? We can have the journals listed in ABDC. So we can refer a lot of electronic databases, and this is with respect to the journal. And when you talk about with respect to the databases also, the numerical or the statistical data. So if I talk about financial databases, you can check onto the website of RBI, you can go to the websites of banks, right? Or there are various other databases which are available with respect to the domain, right? So we can refer the books, we can take out the critical ideas and concepts from the books. Then there are journals who publish good research papers at various frequency. Few journals are, biannually, few are monthly. So you can take the uh, research papers from the journals, be it online or offline. You can also refer conferences, and then you can also check the thesis. And if I specifically talk from the Indian perspective, then Shodh Ganga is the databases where all the theses of various Indian universities are being uploaded. So you can refer that also, be it from any country, right? Then we have dictionaries, and we have research reports which are being uh, you know published by the various bodies of the countries. So you can refer the research reports also. Now, what are the steps of literature review? How can I conduct the literature review? So I have mentioned it here so that it becomes easy for you, because sometimes, when you try to read something, many times what I've observed with my researcher is they are like, ma'am, we are not able to understand it. And my next suggestion to them is, please reread it. And if you're not able to understand it for reading it twice, read it multiple times, right? Because the idea is you should get the flow of the research paper that has been used while writing it, right? I'm not saying my all the scholars must go to each and every word and they must understand it. That's not required, right? So our purpose is to understand how a review can be written, or what is this research work trying to elaborate upon, or what is this research work has brought into the light which was not known earlier, right? So firstly, once you read few content, you choose a topic, right? And then once after choosing a topic, you identify the database and resources, because as I say, for economics data related activity, you may have different databases. For medical background, you may have different databases. For engineering, you may refer to IEEE journals, right? So on and so forth. You have to identify the relevant database and the resources that you may use. Then you have to, once you have identified the database, then you search in the database and then refine it. Means you searched, you land up to having, say, 3000 articles, but all those 3000 articles may not be relevant to you, right? Maybe of your domain, but may not relevant to you. So then you refine it, and then once you have shortlisted that these are the research papers which are of my relevance, then I read and analyze, and I try to write the review of it. Right? So these are the 5 steps that you can follow. Now, what are the stages of literature review? Right? So these are the stages of literature review. The first one is bibliography, then followed by thematic organization, followed by mode of reading, writing individual sections, and integrate sections. Right? So let's talk about each one of them, detail by detail. Right? So the very first one is annotated bibliography. So what happens at this stage? The reader reads a lot of articles, books, and other type of published work in that particular domain, and then write a brief review of what they have understood out of it. So after going through all this, literature, they give the proper annotation of each source of related literature, and then they include more references of the um, work that has been done by the current author and plus the other author, right? And here I would like to give you a quick tip to all the researchers. That is, one is, I searched a lot, and then finally I've landed up to a research paper which I believe that this is one of the best paper which can support my idea and my thought, right? So now the quick tip to all the researcher is, uh, just identify few good research papers rather than identifying all 20 or 40 literatures that you want to put it as reference to your study. What you can do is, once you have identified paper 1 which is extremely good and related to my study, then you can go to the references section of it and try and identify who are the other authors, those who have done the work in the same area or in same direction. So instead of hunting it on other portals, what I do, I go to the references of the same paper and dig out the 4 to 5 important ones which relate to my area, which certainly will drastically reduce your time on searching the good related articles of your own domain. So now, thematic organization. This is one of the important part, and many a times you would see people just like that write the review of literature, and that is how we say this is good and this is not good, right? Because when I say a scholar who has done the thematic organization, which states that he is quite clear about what are the themes that he's going to address upon, what are the sub themes and the categories he's going to address upon, right? So say for example, I'm working on a paper which all talks about customer satisfaction, right? So when I started reviewing the research papers on customer satisfaction, then satisfaction is derived out of loyalty, right? Satisfaction is derived out of the retention. Satisfaction is derived out of the low prices and the good quality, right? So these are the three sub themes that I define, right? So customer satisfaction and loyalty, all those paper which talks about loyalty, I'll put it under the theme of loyalty, and so on and so forth, right? So what I have done, I have categorized the paper into various themes, and then I have arranged them chronologically as well, so that when I start writing, it becomes easy for me, right? And now, once I have decided the theme of the research paper, like these are the various themes for the review, then in that case, I try to build the connection also, right? Are there few authors who are talking at the same line, or every author is taking the research to a different tangent, right? So once I put them into various themes, right, and then I need to realize whether just having two papers in one theme is enough, or I should have more relevant research paper for a specific theme, which will justify me putting that as a separate theme, right? So therefore, you have to go for more reading, right? The researcher may be able to set aside some less relevant areas and articles which they pursued initially. This is very important, and every day is, upgradation of yourself. Every day is a new learning. So it may happen probably a month before when I realize that this paper or this article is quite relevant to me. But during the month, when I've gone through the multiple more research papers, then I realize that is little less important. So I can put that at the backside for the moment and let me read more. Probably I may get more work which is closer to my research area, or which is giving me more insights with respect to the my research area, right? And then we once I have done all the readings, I have read all the research papers, I have identified these are the ones that I'm including into my research papers. Then what I do, I start writing individual sections, meaning individual section. What do I mean by saying individual section is all about reading through the research paper and then writing the crux of it in your own understanding, right? So that the other reader may take out the inferences of the entire research paper from just one paragraph. So you have to beautifully articulate each and every objective and some part of methodology, and plus what the conclusion that the author has tried to highlight, right? So therefore you write the individual sections, and the last and the most important part is integrating them. Now what happens, you have collected all the flowers separately. So you have collected all the sections, or you have written all the sections separately, but now how do you weave them together, right? That should be seamless, meaning thereby once I read from first line to the last line, which talks about the individual section of say 7 or 8 research papers, but it should not look like that I'm hopping from one agenda to the other, right? Once I read it, it should sound like a story. It should convey the same message that I wanted to convey in the first line. Until the last line, I'm trying to prove out the same thing. I'm trying to highlight the same thing, right? That is how is the integration of the each section. Then what should be the content of the review? when I'm trying to write the review, what should be the content? Look, first few lines should talk about the introduction, what we are trying to write there, and the second part is all about the main body part, and the third part is the conclusion part, right? So when I write a literature review based paper, then there are the three headers. One is introduction, then second one is the body, which I call it as literature review section, and the third one is the conclusion part, right? So how do we write the introduction? Now, I hope you would agree with me that once you start reading any of the document, if initial few lines doesn't excites you, doesn't interest you, you leave the document then and there, right? Because the document wasn't available, was not able to generate some interest in you so that you take a deep dive into it, right? So here you have to be very strategic and smart enough to give a good introduction paragraph or few lines to your research work, right? That is how, or this is the place where you can express your writing skills, right? So where you talk about, give some brief of the general topic that you're talking about, and you highlight with some trends what is happening in and around, right? And also you need to highlight or establish the point of view that the existing author has tried to highlight, right? Then we have writing the body. So, group research studies and other types of literatures according to the common denominators. As we have already mentioned, we have to define the various themes, right? And the second quick tip of the session is, in case you are not able to define the theme, right? As I gave you the example of consumer satisfaction. So, if you are not able to define the themes, the easiest way which everybody can do is, one is putting their literature review in chronological order, second, putting the studies in global context and studies conducted in domestic context. So, I can't accept this, that any researcher mentioning that I could not find any research which is conducted abroad with respect to this domain. So if not other sub themes, then the common denominators for your literature review section could be, I am repeating, studies in the global context and studies in the domestic or the national context. So that could be the other way or the smart way to create the theme for your research paper, right? So summarize individual studies and articles with as much as little details as each merit according to its comparative importance in the literature, right? So now many times it may happen that for the entire research paper, in few cases you may miss on writing the methodology, or in few cases you feel no, without methodology I cannot write the review of it. So that you have to plan accordingly for which paper, which element you want to highlight more. That as a researcher you only have to decide. Now writing the conclusion, right? So here we summarize the major contribution of the studies, major contributions of the existing researchers to the existing domain of the research, right? And what is the conclusion out of it, what I'm trying to derive out of conducting the literature review is that I find out the research gap. I find out the inconsistencies, so that that helps me to conduct a future research work, right? And finally, I have to conclude it by providing some insights into the relationship between central topic of the literature. So I have also to justify why this review has been conducted. What is the relevance of it? Why do I need it? Right? So conclusion should clearly justify why have you conducted this review. Now, as you can see, I'll just request the audience to request the participants to read through this example, right? So to me, this appears to be the bad one, and I'll give you the justification why this appears to be the bad one, right? All right, you can just read through it. Yeah, Adam Kotke and Pat Gick, 1983, found that some women students said that they avoided taking a class or working with certain professors because of the risk of harassment. They also found that men and women student reacted differently. Their research was conducted through a survey of 1,000 men and women graduate and undergraduate students. Similarly, the other author, Benson and Thompson's study in Social Problem, 1982, list many problems created by sexual harassment. In their excellent book, the professor gave a long list of difficulties that victims have suffered. So once you go through this, I'm not means I'm sure you would agree that we are not able to build up the connection that what the writer is trying to explain, right? Initially, we are talking about the women students, then we are talking about the sexual harassments, and then we are talking about the challenges which are being faced by, right, though all these studies fall in the same domain, but they are not getting at the same conclusion at the end, right? Now let's go through the second slide of it. Yeah, as you could see, there are the same authors which have been considered. Two of them are same, right? But the way of writing has entirely been changed, right? So the victims of sexual harassment suffer a range of consequences from lowered self-esteem and loss of self-confidence to withdrawal from social interaction, changed career goals, and depression. Now you could see, right? So when I talk about Adams, Kotek, and Padgig, and the followed by the next author and the third author, so all three are talking about like these are the variables. What are the variables? What are the factors which land up to the or what are the consequences that they go through after the sexual harassment? So they have talked about all the consequences one after the other, right? And they have given some statistical evidences also. For example, noted that these authors noted that 13% of women students said that they avoid taking a class or working with certain professors because of the risk of harassment. So here in this case, the writer has also supported the fact what has been given above with some statistical or numerical data as well, right? So to whatever extent you can support your answer with the given frame of the lines and the given frame of content that you can write for one research paper, right? So that will add value to your review. So, these are the quick points that must be considered while writing a good review. So we have to be specific, and once we are talking about specific, we mean we are very clear about what methodologies we are going to use, what are the relevant points that I'm going to include. And now be selective is all about, as I already mentioned, it's not like if you have downloaded a document, it's a sure shot that you're going to include it. No, it's not that way. So if it doesn't seems to be helping me out in my research work, then certainly I have to discard that research work. So I have to be selective, and I have to be current in my approach. Now, why this is important is because if I'm talking something which has already been into existence for a number of years, which somewhat give an idea to the other reader that this topic may be exhausted to the core. So when I am talking about any topic which is current in nature, so I have to keep that futuristic approach in my mind, because whatever I'm conducting today, whatever study I'm conducting today, should be reproducible, should be useful to the researchers coming who would be upcoming in the next a few years, right? So basically I have to have a futuristic approach in my mind, and therefore I have to select a topic, right? And then I have to ensure that whatever claims I'm putting, whatever experiments or statistical tools I'm using, or whatever is there, I should have proper evidences to them, right? Proper justifications to them, because without justification, without proof, no research is considered to be valid, right? And focus on the sources of evidences. It's not like that you go for any source which is not acceptable in the market, or any source which is not valid, right? So it's not like I gave the evidence, so but from where the evidence came up, right? So the source of evidence should also be very much relevant. So I should have account of contrary evidences. So does the author has taken the conflicting evidence and arguments? How does the author address disagreement with the other researchers? Right. So my study may be into disagreement with the other researchers as well. But what are the evidences that I'm saying that I don't agree to it? Probably I've statistically proved it. If not statistically, I have referred a report or whatsoever the case may be, right? And another important aspect is reference citation. So I've seen this, to me it's very unethical. I have also seen it, few researchers doing it, probably out of lack of knowledge, because they don't know how to give the due relevance and the recognition to the person from whom you are reading it out. So it's always advisable to give a proper citation and references, and when I say citation, it should be in text citation and the references should be clearly mentioned towards the end of the document. And then we should avoid abbreviations, right, which becomes technical for the reader, because you never know who is the audience who is going to read your research work. So, and another important thing along with this is we should be using very simple and accurate sentence. Why I'm saying simple? Because that is what the art is all about. That is what the art of writing is all about. So you write the complex things also in such a simpler manner, so that any individual, even from your domain or from the other domain, can easily absorb it once they go through the document. Then organization of the literature review, as I have already discussed the steps and the way it should be organized. So if the literature review is organized properly, that once glance through will give an idea to the reader whether I should take up this article for further reading or not. Because once that they go through your structure, then only they'll be able to realize whether this work has been done diligently or just for the heck of doing it, right? And then it is also important to refer original sources. Original sources is probably if I have written the review of, say, Mr. X, right, and you are reading my paper, which is by the name of Kanika. So instead of referring Kanika in your research paper, it's always advisable to refer Mr. X, because you are referring to the work who is the prime author of that particular article, right? So these are the few important points to be considered, and by this we have come to the end of the session, and I'll request the team to take up. And also, I would take this moment to thank all the participants who have joined with me in this session and have been very patient throughout the session and listening to me. And I'll request you to, you may post up your doubts in the QA session once we are done with the quiz part of the session. Nasreen Nisha, ma'am?
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your presentation with our participants. I'm really sorry because of technical problem, I was
Yeah,
disconnected.
yeah. Yeah, no worries.
So we will come back with you in our QA session, ma'am, after the quiz competition. So please stay with us.
ওর ব্লকের নাম
So, thank you so much for staying with us till now, dear participants. We'll now, yes, we'll start our live quiz session right now after this short video. So, don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends in our comments. And we have already shared the code that is IGP. So we will post the join link in our comment box, and you can also join with us via the Slido app, or you can directly go to www.slido.com, give the code, and put your name because it will be framed in our certificates. Yes, and then we will, after the quiz, we will come back our honorable speaker in our Q&A session. So get ready for our quiz session. Welcome back in our live quiz competition segment. Yes, Ma'am Sharon, you can see the joining link in our comment box. If you click it, you can directly enter in our live quiz. Just put your name and the code that is IGP. Yes, and you can also scan the QR code that is flashed on our screen. That is a very easy process to join in our live quiz segment. Also, if you download the Slider app in your mobile, so you can directly use the app and just join, just giving the code in our live quiz program. Yes. So, dear participants, right now we have 51 participants in our live quiz segment. Thank you for joining with us. All right, so we will take last one more minute to start our live quiz competition. Yes. So we will learn with fun in our quiz segment. Yes, sir. As we all know, you can see the join link in our comment box, and you can directly go to www.slido.com, and the code is IGP that is already flashed on the screen. Okay, so thank you so much, Ma'am Kiani, for joining. Ma'am Tia Fatunga, Sir Joseph, have a pleasure. Sir Ricky or Kalima, Sir Muhammad Shibili. Shibili. Yes. Thank you, Sir Alvin Rim. Ma'am Kimberly Me, Ma'am Nancy Barotiel. We have Ma'am Kanisa Barrel. Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Dia Gigi Javier. We have Sir Maylin Vigayas, Ma'am Christina Video Rosario, Sir Ricky Arcolima, Sir Joseph Lambos Lesser, Anelita Quater Villanova. We have Sir Marjorie G. Morales. Thank you so much for joining. And we have right now 56 participants. USA ship video. And then we will move to our certification process. We will share the webinar code. So if you participate in our live quiz, sorry, live session, then you'll get a certificate. All right, so let's start our live quiz competition. So here is the first question. What is a literature review? You have two options on your screen. Evaluative report of studies related to your selected area, and option number two, something you do to collect information. All right, so the correct answer is option number one. 98% of our participants choose the correct answer. So congratulations everyone, those answered correctly. Okay, so we have Sir Maniwa Tabis of France leading on top in first round, following from Nancy Barotello. We have Sir Dennis going to Sir So, Jessa Apostadera, and finally Sir Indiana January Cindy. Alright, so let's see the next question. Researchers usually use these resources to justify the importance of a research problem, except option number one, rely on advice of experts. Option number two, talk with colleagues in the workplace. So the right answer is talk with colleagues in the workplace, and 64% of our participants think it's the right answer, and yes, you are correct. Okay, so we have Sir January Cindy right now is leading on top. Phoning Ma'am Cheryl and Ellen Infante, Sir Dennis going to Surso. We have Ma'am Lisa Lee and Delatore, and finally Ma'am Eugene Dorothy. Okay, so let's proceed to the next question. Question number three. Literature review is step 5 in designing your research project. What do you think? It's true. So we have lost 1 second left. Yes. And the correct answer is false. 46% of our participants think it's false, and you are correct. Alright, so we have Ma'am Jessa Apostadero leading on first position, third row. Okay, so following Ma'am Nancy Barotil, Sir Joker Baldas Cardoso, we have Sir Ellen H. Brutus, and Ma'am Kiyomi Saya Gitowikiri. Okay, so moving to next question. What does primary research mean? Seeking new knowledge that has not been previously published, and option number two, carrying out research now. Alright, so the right answer is seeking new knowledge that has not been previously published, and 86% of our participants think it is the correct answer. Yes, you are right. Okay, so we have again Ma'am Jessa Apostolero leading on top. Following Ma'am Nancy Barotin, we have So Joe Valdez Cantoso, Sir Alan Juan Brutus, and Sir Alex Javier Alvarez. Yes. So congratulations, those answered correctly. Alright, so let's see the next question. The purpose of a literature review is to understand what is already known about an idea, or option two, to collect information. So let's see the correct answer, that is understand what is already known about an idea. 80% of our participants get the correct answer. Congratulations. Alright, so we have Nancy Barotel leading on top in this round. Okay. Following Jagger Valdez also, we have Jessa Costadero, Cyril Brutus, and Sarah Alexander Alvarez. So congratulations again. Let's see the next question. What is the result? Qualitative research. Researchers do not typically refer to bias. Option number one, the need to gain access to a site or participant. And option number two, the need to incorporate personal views in interpretation. Right, so the correct answer is option number two, that is the need to incorporate personal views in interpretations, and 57% of our participants get the correct answer. So we have Central Geographical Discourse leading on top. Okay, so let's proceed to the next question. Reviews of the research literature in your areas of interest. Option number one are particularly useful for generating ideas for your own research project. Or option number two should be read only after you have formulated your research. Okay, so 90% of our participants got the correct answer. That is option number one. So congratulations. Okay, so we have Sir Joggerbal Discatoso leading on top with John following Ma'am Ladrin Ignacio. Okay, we have Ma'am Emily and review Sir John Cindy and Ma'am Nancy Barotel. Okay, we have last three more questions. Let's proceed to the question number 8. Why do researchers conduct a review of relevant literature? Option number one, to review relevant data about the literature, or option number two, to get a picture of what is known and not known about a problem. Okay, so the right answer is option number two, that is to get a picture of what is known and not known about the problem. And 36% of our participants got the correct answer. And we have Sir Nicoden and Smiro leading on top in S1. Okay, so let's proceed to the question number 9. The best way to locate literature for a literature review is option number one, run a search of database such as ERIC. And option number two, ask faculty or students to recommend good articles. Okay, so option number one is the right answer, and 94% of our participants got the correct answer. So congratulations. Okay, so we have again Sir Nicoden as Miro leading on top. Following Sir Jogger Discusasok, we have Ma'am Charlotte Kalahari Matachi. Okay, Ma'am Leah D. Javier and Ma'am Emily and Tony. Okay, so let's see the last question. A literature review allows a scientist to do option number one, find out what is already known about an area of research, or option number two, document their research. You have 7 seconds left to answer. is option number one, and 85% of our participants thinks it is the correct answer. Yes, you are correct. So let's see our leaderboard and our winners name. So congratulations, Sir Nico Denis Miro. Okay, we have Sanchogan Builders Picasso plus second, Ma'am Carolyn Kalahamaguchi plays third, Ma'am Leah Deed Javier plays fourth, Ma'am Emilian Rifio plays fifth. Okay, so we have from Kyungi Saya Kitiwikiri plays six, Ma'am Jigmi Dohi plays seven, Sir Albrin Array plays eight, Sir Sunday Olabody Ola Dikon plays nine, and if I am not wrong, it's Sir January Cindy plays seven. Yes. So congratulations to our top 10 quiz competition winners. Okay, so here, winners, you can collect your winners certificates from our Facebook official page. After the program, it will be posted to our page. So don't forget to collect your winner certificates, quiz winner certificates, and please share your happiness that you are happy being part of our quiz competition and get a certificates in our comments. Yes, thank you so much. So we are moving to now our Q&A session. So get ready with your question and any kind of words that you want to ask our speaker on the topic. Yes. So after the short video, we'll be back. Hello, ma'am. Welcome once again
Hi.
in our Q&A segment.
Yeah.
So
So
here
I
is
could.
our first question.
So
The
when
question
you
is from
talk
Sari.
about, yeah, Paulo Liberen, right? Please pardon me for if I have mispronunciated it, right? So basically, when you talk about effective strategies to organize a review, would be, as I clearly mentioned, be it the entire paper which is based on literature review, or even if you are writing a review for just one research paper. So basically, is you try and begin with, either you can give the name of the author at the beginning or at the end of the way or the format of citation you are using for your research paper. You start with the objective that he or she in his study is has explored or emphasized on or analyzed. You try what was the objective of this research article that the author has written, and then if you want to highlight a few part of methodology where you can pick out the most important points, meaning thereby if the author has interviewed say 500 of participants, so you can say the study concludes after the the personal interaction being conducted by 500 respondents, that customer satisfaction is being impacted or it is not being impacted. So objective is most important to be mentioned, the conclusion is most important to be mentioned, what the author has highlighted, and from the methodology you can take out few of the highlights which you feel relevant for your study. Okay, why is it important to paraphrase? The next question is by Yongya. Even though you acknowledge, look, after even you're acknowledging is your regards that you are paying to the author because you're referring his work. This is not the extra favor you are doing to anyone, right? But why paraphrasing is required? Because uh, you should not get into the trap of plagiarism. Plagiarism is coming up as one of the issue when we talk about writing reviews. What happens, few of the people, they just cut and copy and paste the same entire document for build their own document, right? So to avoid and get into the trap of plagiarism, you should always paraphrase and try and understand the message that the author is trying to convey and rewrite it into your own terms. Okay, which is the most now the next one is for Pinaranda, Sharon Pinaranda, right?
Sure.
So yeah, Sharon.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the most simplest to use in research, qualitative or quantitative? Now you need to understand what is the objective to conduct your research, right? If the objective of your research is dependent on something that needs to be statistically and significantly proved, right? So in that case, you have to go for quantitative. Until and unless you don't have data, you cannot analyze it and prove it significantly or statistically, right? But when you are trying to, understand the relationship between the existing variables and the upcoming variables, or in the case you are trying to understand the relationship between the various theories which have been developed and their relevance in the current scenario, then you can go for qualitative. So the first agenda, my suggestion would be you need to understand what is the purpose of conducting your study. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, dear participants, if you have any question, please write down in our comment section. I think we have no more questions from our
Yeah.
participants. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you once again for
Yeah.
coming in IGP's platform and sharing your knowledge with our participants. And I have also learned so many things from your presentation. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, it was indeed a pleasure to be here at this platform and having this interaction with all the amazing participants and the amazing hosts.
Okay, ma'am, I don't want to skip a question. It comes right now. The question is
Sure,
from,
sure.
I'm sorry, ma'am. It's from Ma'am Nancy.
As my reference, yeah, absolutely. If IGP team has no objections to it, I can share the presentation and you can get it from the team. Yeah, I have personally no issues to it.
You can share the Drive link here in chat box, ma'am, so that I can post in our comment box.
Okay.
Or you can give your email ID. They will communicate with you.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I can give my email ID. Just a minute.
Yes.
I'll write down my. I'm not able to see that.
Chat box.
Yeah, I'm not able to see
Private
where to
chat.
type.
Private chat. Can't you see
Okay,
that?
you want? Yeah, I can see the private chat. Hang on, I'll just give it here.
Okay, we have
Um,
another question.
Yeah, I have given my email ID in the chat box. Uh, those who are keen on any support with respect to the presentation or any other further inputs, you can write down to me on this mail ID. I'll get back to you. Okay.
Have
How
another
to
question.
Yeah, how to introduce a research question in the literature review, right? Basically, you should be very clear what is the purpose of you conducting this literature review, and I'm sure you are talking about in which area you would present your question in the literature review based research paper, right? So basically there are three sections. One is introduction, then literature review, and then the conclusion, right? So, your introduction should initially talk about the brief background of the area that you have chosen, the brief background of the topics that you are touching upon, right? And towards the end of the introduction session, you must mention what are the research questions you are trying to address after conducting this literature review, right? So towards the end of the introduction, in the last paragraph of the introduction, you can mention your objectives or the research questions that you are trying to dig out in this research papers. Then you write down the literature review, which talks about the various themes that you may define with respect to your own domain. And towards the end of the literature review, that would be probably the last paragraph of the literature review, you can talk about a bit of a conclusion of the review that you have done. Like this is are the findings and these are the results of the existing literature, right? And after that, you can highlight some of the gaps of it also. What are the gaps that you have observed? Right? What existing has been the available in the fraternity, academic fraternity, and what extra you are trying to propose would be mentioning in the conclusion section, the last part of it.
Thank you so much, madam. And I have shared your email ID in our chat comment section.
Yeah, yeah, I seen that.
So, do you have any last message for our participants? Any message for our participants?
Look, I just one message to the participants would be research is one of the interesting domain that you can explore yourself further in. But mind you, it's not that easy, right? So having said that, it's not that easy. It's not. I'm asking you not to do that. But if you do that, please do that religiously, because there are a lot of things which are unwanted and unethical coming up into this area. So if you want to do something, you may have results little later, but if you do something very religiously and genuinely, certainly you will have good results for yourself. So be genuine. That is, be genuine to your work, whatever you're doing. That would be my piece of advice and suggestion.
Thank you so much, ma'am, Dr. Kanika Sachdeva. And ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for our honorable speaker.
Thank you so
Thank you
very
so
much.
much, ma'am. And I'm looking for another session with you in our class.
Sure, sure. It would be indeed a pleasure. And a good evening to one and all present in the session, and namaskar from India. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
Yeah.
So, dear participants, right now we are moving to our certification process, and before that, I'm going to share the video. So, enjoy this short Thanksgiving video and don't go away. We will share the code after the short video. Yes, right now we are now in our certification process. So today's program name is Literature Review for Researchers. Yes, and the code is IGP8132. Let me tell you once again, the code is IGP8132. So please note the code. And because without this code, no one is eligible for certificates. And with code, you can claim your certificates anytime. Yes, and you can also visit our website. Our website address is www.eduigp.com. Yes, and you can also visit our website and collect your certificates. And you can also visit our new website, that is job logins. So just give a check. You can see, I think you can see all the information about job related, and it will be benefited for each of every participants who are watching this live. I believe that, yes. And don't forget to give a thumbs up to our new Facebook page, that is IGP Kids. So thank you once again for your participation. And yes, ma'am, you can Dorothy, please send, sir, you can Dorothy, please send a message to our Facebook official page. Then you can get your answer. Yes. Thank you so much once again to all of our participants and to our quiz winners. You'll get your certificates after the program from our Facebook official page. So don't forget to collect your certificates, winner certificates. And thank you once again to all of our participants, all of our teachers, and our volunteer teams. Thank you so much. And I'm inviting all of you for our tonight program. So don't miss it. Till then, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy wherever you are right now. Thank you, sir. Sandy, thank you, sir. Ripple, thank you once again. Okay, so till then, everyone keep safe. Right now, I'm signing off. Myself, Nasrin Mishana. Thank you.